We statisticians are not after the precise count of 2,788,212 people in this category or that. But when it comes to some of this surveillance or targeting using these population data systems, in effect, they assume it is that information is totally reliable. Statistical data systems are not good instruments of surveillance. They've been used as that, but they are not. A major example relates to the Jewish Holocaust. The Nazis made use of census data in Germany, particularly the 1939 census. They had a special questionnaire that was aligned with the Nuremberg laws on the definition of Jews, and that was one of the sources that they used to compile lists for deportation. In the Netherlands, under Nazi occupation, but this was the Dutch Civil Service. Well, just prior to the outbreak of the war, the Statistical Office had worked for an amendment to the population registration law of the Netherlands, and this law was strengthened. The new system was designed, as they said, to provide being able to follow a population from cradle to grave. That language was used. No safeguards, none. It was a highly centralized system, which is sort of one kind of safeguard to decentralize a bit. And it included religion, was one of the items in the system. After the Nazi occupation, that system was used as the basis of the Jewish identity cards that then were used to generate the lists for deportation. And in addition, an earlier census was used to produce what we call population density maps of Amsterdam, where there are a lot of dots to social concentration, and it sort of showed which areas in Amsterdam had a concentration of Jewish population, and that those areas were targeted for certain kinds of inspired riots by Nazi sympathizers during the occupation. Another example, much closer to home, is in the United States. We used the 1940 census to assist in the rounding up of Japanese Americans on the West Coast, data from the 1940 census, where race was an item and the Japanese was a race, and this roundup covered citizens and aliens alike, mostly citizens. Now that roundup was based on what some people call mesodata, which is data for small geographical areas, not the individual records.
Right.
But actually the Census Bureau had the confidentiality law amended in 1942 to give them permission to give data away for defense purposes, and in fact we've been able to show that individual names were given to the Secret Service, for example, of all Japanese living in the Washington, D.C. area in in 1940. Now, this again shows how ill-suited that was, because included in that list were, it's obvious, people with Chinese names. They had the wrong race item. And then someone who was born in Puerto Rico, who somehow the race got ticked wrong, and it's a Spanish name. And there were people who shouldn't have been counted because there were people who were in the diplomatic corps. So it's a good example of the ill-suitedness of general statistical data. Another example is the genocide in Rwanda. They had a population register, and the government used that particularly in Kigali, the capital, for developing lists of people to target in that genocide. Another example, South Africa. At the beginning of apartheid, after the nationalists won the election in 1948, I guess it was, or 49, in 1950 they passed a Population Registration Act with the express purpose of being able to classify people by race, everybody. And the Statistical Office was given responsibility for that classification, and the 1951 census of South Africa was to be the instrument for classifying people. Well, it seems like that's a simple matter, but it's not a simple matter to classify people by race. And it took them years and years to do that classification. But an awful lot of harm was done as a result of that.